Today we talk about wax.
Tasty!
So today in the studio we are joined by Mr. Kraft. He is a 6th grade teacher and he's here to talk to us about the wax museum that's held in our elementary school. So we're just going to dive right in. If you would like to explain what is the wax museum and why do we do it?
Well, the Wax Museum's a project that we do with our 6th graders where they first write a biography report about a significant figure in history or still living today that's had an impact on the world, generally a positive one. We try to lend them to those figures. And then they spend some time creating a short speech and setting up props and a costume, and they take on this figure in a wax museum in the elementary school. And during that time, the people will come around and they'll press a button like you're in an actual wax museum, and they come to life from a still pose, and then they give their speech, and then they go back to their pose. And it's just a way for the kids to actually interact with that project rather than just keeping it a paper-based writing project. We allow them to become that person, so it allows them to interact. Plus, it gives them a very motivating purpose for their biography report, which is the biggest curriculum piece we do for it.
Yeah, I'm sure having it be more than just a paper or anything boring kind of like that, it makes it exciting for them and they can get into it, and it sparks their interest a little bit better than any other project that they may do. So how long has the Wax Museum been part of the 6th grade curriculum?
Well, it's been part of the 6th grade curriculum for quite some time. I joined 6th grade probably 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, and at that time it was not occurring. It had taken a hiatus because they switched curriculums for reading and writing, and they felt that it wasn't going to be appropriate to do that. And when I joined the 6th grade team, I made a suggestion that, well, we have to write a biography anyways. Why don't we just have them write the biography on the person they would do for the Wax Museum and continue that all the way through? And it turned into this 2-month extravaganza of biographies. And we've just kept it that way ever since. I mean, this is probably year 6, 5 or 6 of doing it this way. And the kids really look forward to it and enjoy it.
So who comes and watches the kids? I know it's not just the 6th grade, so who attends the Wax Museum?
Well, we invite all the grade levels that are in the elementary school, so K through 5 at this point. Any of the teachers and staff that are over there are welcome to join, but we also send home letters with the kids for their parents. And most often we'll get parents, grandparents, sometimes aunt and uncles, brothers and sisters will come. Every once in a while, a sibling from the high school will go over when the parents show up, and they'll get a release to go over and walk around the Wax Museum and spend a good hour over there doing it.
When will the Wax Museum be held this year?
This year is being held actually next Wednesday and Thursday, which is the 27th and 28th of February. And it's an all-day event.
And it is in the elementary school still.
And it's being held in the elementary school, yeah.
So how far in advance have the students been preparing for the Wax Museum itself?
We started preparing the beginning of November. And by that I just mean we started looking at biographies and reading them, having kids just go through them. What makes a good biography? We looked at ones that were good, ones that were bad. The actual Wax Museum project itself didn't really begin until after Thanksgiving. But if you really want to look at, as a teacher, when do we start preparing for this? It really starts at the beginning of November with those things.
That's a long time. I'm impressed with the amount of work that goes into that. So how do the kids decide what their project is or what their subject is?
Well, what we do is we eventually get to a list of figures that we've pre-selected for the kids. Now, they can choose their own, but that requires a separate form that we've created where they have to do a little preliminary research and come up with is there information out there on the person, and have they made a positive impact on the world? And by that we just mean, have they done something that's bettered the lives of people either in a small community or worldwide? So they have to do that. But we also take them through that list, and some of the ones that are not as well known, we actually bring them up and we present those figures to the kids so they have some background about who they are. We show them pictures of those people so that they have some information about them and they're not just making a decision blindly, because I think there's probably a list of 70 people they can choose from. It's like 4 pages long. But that's how they pick it in the beginning. They'll go through and they'll pick the top 4, and then everyone's name goes in a hat, and we pull names, and when we pull your name, if you're up, you get your first choice. If your first choice is taken, you get your second, and then it just goes down the ladder till we're all done with all the kids.
So what are some of your most memorable wax museum projects?
Geez, there's been so many. I mean, every year you get about 60 kids doing 60 different people. Steve Jobs was a good one. The young gentleman who did him a few years ago, that was a really well done project. Dressed just like Steve Jobs was always dressed. And we actually did Steve Jobs the year before he passed away. So looking back on that and reflecting on it, it was sort of significant that he did a biography on someone who at that time was living, but just a year next we were talking about someone who had passed away. So that was interesting. One of my favorites, just because he's one of my favorite historical figures, was Colonel Josh Chamberlain from the Civil War. Most likely because he was a teacher before he was a war hero at Gettysburg. General Patton was done by someone a few years ago, and that one was a good one too, simply because you think about General Patton, he wasn't really this big guy, but he was known to be tough, and one of our smallest students did him. So I thought it was fitting for that. We've had some really good Sacagaweas in the past. We've had some really good. I think we had Jackie Joyner Curse one year. She was really well done by someone. So there's a couple that stick out in my mind.
Well, I'm certainly excited, and I hope I can go over and watch this year. I'd like to thank you for joining us today. It's been fun for me. We haven't done anything in our studio for a while, so it's nice to get all our equipment running. And yeah, just thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I really hope, if you have time, come on over and take a look at some of these projects the kids really have been working on since Thanksgiving. So they're excited.